Need any help with anything?
I was on a crisis call.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
I'm rushing back. No, I think
Okay.
I'll get it started. I'm waiting for crisis to call me back in the middle of the meeting, I imagine.
Well, if you need anything, you'll just have to, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll chat separately or something.
Yeah.
Okay. I figured that's where you were. I tried to WhatsApp you as you were flying over there, and I figured there's no way he can answer me and drive. So. I figured you didn't have any backup.
Yeah.
At least, thank God, it wasn't critical.
Yeah,
It's,
really.
Yeah, I mean.
I got that and thought,
Holy,
how am I going to get back here?
huh?
Got that, and I thought, how am I going to get back here fast enough?
And I was like,
Hey.
oh God, not at 6:15 for God.
Hello?
How's come I can't see anything?
I can't see you, which might be a good thing.
Thank you.
It's because, Rick, you as the host have to change the view. So if you change it to the gallery view so we can all see one another, that's what everybody else will see also.
Come on, Rick. Get yourself together.
Sorry, I was rushing back for a mental health call. I didn't think I was going to make it.
I didn't know you could I didn't know you could treat yourself.
Who is Blue Spire?
Oh, that's me. Hold on. I got to change my name. That's my work name.
Oh,
I'm very official with the work name.
that's
I will tell you too, we're also already recording. I don't know if you want to be or not.
Yes, I set it up to record on start, so I wouldn't forget.
Okay. How do I?
So do you see any of us?
I just see Rick.
Me too.
Same with me.
I'd really rather see anyone else.
Oh my gosh.
Did you try to start your video?
I don't know how.
I don't even have a video option. Rick, you may have to
I don't have a video
I don't have
option.
a video option either.
Nope. I thought we tested this.
Yes.
Yeah, we did. It worked fine. Unless something changed in one of the upgrades. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I know what I didn't do.
I think you have to turn us to panelists, maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't count because I figured that out.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
There we go.
I'm just kidding.
But that does mean that everybody coming in is going to be able to unmute themselves.
Yeah, only if I make them a panelist, right?
Well, we aren't a panelist yet, though. We know.
Oh, no, I unmuted all of you.
Oh,
Dave,
okay.
how did you do on the side there? Are you laying down? But in the
Hanging from the wall.
There we go. Now we're in. And I think everybody should have to click on their start video, and then it'll let you.
Hey, there we all are.
Hmm.
There we go.
Why is my video not showing?
Did you start
I
the
love that
video?
your background is the office. I love that, the meeting room.
Yeah.
You can see me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still out there. Hold it. I have to grab onto something. Okay.
Gail, do you know is 9330 R1?
I'm going to restart.
No, I don't know.
There we go.
Let me find out if that's
Sun was showing on this.
Mr. Verderame. Are you on?
Here, I'm on.
Ah, that is him. Okay, so he's allowed to talk, but we won't have any video from him. Let me rename him.
I hope everybody's doing well.
Taking a nap.
Okay. There I am.
Hey, Richard.
For some reason, my video's not. Let me see what my video settings are.
Gail, did you get much input from public prior to the meeting?
None.
None?
There
I
we go.
have, I had one person who requested the login information, so we'll see if he joins us.
Somebody's USB is giving them fits.
That's mine. I guess I could take it out and not, and
Yeah.
sorry, I just won't have the mouse.
Come on, Gail. Gosh, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I like to use the mouse instead of the little like mouse pad thing.
Well, then why was it making that noise?
I don't
Because it
know.
was Baker's. And no computer he touches ever works right ever again. It's the USB mouse attachment he's got on it.
Yeah, but it must have a short in it if it keeps doing that noise.
Does it work continuously or does it like go on and off working as well?
That works continuously. It is very warm though. Does that, if that, I don't know that it's supposed to be.
Maybe
What
it's
is the
just
proper
your warm
temperature for
hands.
USB?
I don't know.
I heard
Anyway.
Oh, and we do have,
We'll put the mouse to sleep.
Mr. Nelson is here and he is in the attendees.
Okay.
You lost Mr. Carr.
Yes, we did. He's no longer connected.
It does, Rick. Did you already promote him to a panelist?
Yes.
It does kick him out and then brings him back in. So it just may be doing that.
Yeah,
Usually it's pretty quick, but.
I did kick him out, kick him to panelists a little while ago. So
Oh, okay. Then he might be really out.
Oh, there he is.
there he is. Mr. Shoebring, you know your mic is on.
Oh, boy. Have another mic issue, John?
I can unmute him. I'll ask him to start video and I'll unmute him. No, I can't unmute him.
All righty. I got, oh my gosh, I got like so many meetings tomorrow. Why do I have so many meetings?
You're important.
I have 4 meetings tomorrow.
There's Mr. Shoebring.
Huh.
So we've got everybody.
Am I there?
You're there.
You're there.
Amazing.
You.
No, I've got nothing.
Okay, Chief, are we all ready?
Yeah, I think we're all live.
Who's that?
Can you hear any background?
Yeah, I
Yes.
see somebody talking about nothing works.
Okay.
Are we about ready to get going here?
Chief?
Yeah, well, yeah, whenever you are, sir. You can,
Okay, well, then I call this meeting of the Carroll Valley Borough Council to order. The first item of business is the minutes from March 10, 2020, the regular meeting.
May I take roll first?
Oh, yes, you may. I thought you saw us all.
Well, I did, but just for the record.
Okay.
Ronald J. Harris,
Here.
David Lillard,
Here.
Richard Matthews,
Here.
Robert Verderame,
Here.
Bruce Carr,
Here.
Jessica Kraft,
Here.
Michael White,
Here.
John Schubring.
Here.
Thank you.
See, Gabriel?
Okay, now we'll move on to the minutes of March 10, 2020, regular meeting for approval. Gail, I found something that I think is an error.
Okay.
Sorry that I didn't get this to you earlier, but it would be on the second page, administrative business, treasurer's report.
Okay.
Shouldn't that be February's treasurer report?
You are correct. Thank you very much.
And that's the only thing I have.
And Gail, that's noted in 2 places.
Yes.
Okay. Like the one that says 2017, the other one for January.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Move the minutes be approved as amended. I'm speaking.
Second.
Okay, I guess we need to do a roll call on this one, Gail, because we can't all talk at once.
Okay. So, and to clarify, I have Mr. Verderame as the first and Mr. Carr as the second.
Correct.
Okay. So then, Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next order of business is approval of the minutes from the March 23rd, 2020 emergency meeting.
Verderame, so moved.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call again, please, Gail.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Aye.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Open to the public. My understanding is we have one member of the public tuning in. Mr. White,
Yeah,
No.
Mr. Nelson is
Mr.
there.
Nelson.
He has
Mr.
not raised his hand to speak.
Okay. All right. Seeing no one from the public wishing to speak, we can move along to borough's response to COVID-19 epidemic. Dave, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to try and keep this quick. I just thought it was important that we discuss very briefly just some of the actions that we've taken and some of the things that I'll be watching here as we move forward, and then open it up to questions for council or the public. So as you all already know, one of the first things we did was close the parks down with the exception of passive recreation, that being walking, things like that, but not for team sport activities. We dealt a little bit with some issues with that at first, but we haven't had any issues with that in the recent weeks. At the same time, we closed all the restrooms, all the facilities, basketball courts, pavilions, baseball, soccer fields, playground equipment, and for the most part, people have kept their distance from those things. So we thank them for that. We have been on a week-to-week basis canceling pavilion rentals. Not sure when we'll be able to get back to allowing people into the facilities, but we'll be monitoring the governor's orders and then talking with council about that at a later date. Also, in terms of the operations, just for the general public's information, we did close our operations to the public on March the 17th. And at that time, we placed all employees, with the exception of certain essential employees, on administrative leave. Since that time, hopefully you all know this, but just in case you weren't aware, we've been still dealing with certain essential tasks. Of course, our police officers have been quite busy, and we thank them for their diligence. But also we've had to keep up with certain tasks such as bookkeeping and accounting. We've had a number of questions that we've still tried to answer. I guess because so many people are at home and looking out their windows, they're noticing that their neighbors are doing things they don't like. So we've had lots of questions about code enforcement stuff. So we've tried to maintain contact with the residents, get the answers to their questions in whatever way we can. We've also tried to have more of a presence on social media, getting some information out that way. Our road crew has also been on administrative leave, but you may have noticed, you may have seen that they have been out individually. If we could find tasks to do where it was a one-man job, such as roadside mowing or street sweeping or mowing in the parks, I've gone ahead and let them come into work to do that. But again, they have to be by themselves the entire time, and they were provided with masks and so forth. One essential employee that gets overlooked when we think about essential employees, and I didn't want tonight to go by without saying a great big thank you. Of course, we owe the police officers a lot of thanks for the work that they're doing, but there's another employee in the borough who hasn't stopped work and has worked 7 days a week to keep things running, and that's our sewer plant operator, Jed Fetter. I really thank him for his efforts. Unfortunately, pandemics don't shut down sewer systems, so we got to keep working. And I thank him for his efforts, and he's been very dedicated. And so thank you to Jed.
Being a member
Also,
that uses sewage system, I'd like to thank him too.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, one of the reasons I bring that up is because, we've been asked a couple of questions, not a lot of questions, but we've been asked questions such as, can we reduce sewer rates or sewer bills and things? But, when it comes to the sewer plant in particular, sewage is still running and it still has to be treated. And so there's still things that we're doing. But I wanted people to be aware that, that's one department that is still working full time. I also wanted to let everyone know that department heads, we met this past Wednesday morning, and we're starting to plan for what it will take to have our eventual reopening, what rules there are, whether it's state or federal rules, what we have to provide to the employees in terms of PPEs and hand washing opportunities or stations and things of that nature. So we're going through the process of having everything put in place so that when we're ready to reopen, we'll be able to do that. But at this point, we're not real sure when that might be, but we're hopeful that it would be soon. I also wanted to let council know, because I promised that one resident I would. We had one resident who had reached out, who asked that I mentioned to council that they think that we should consider waiving or reducing their 2020 tax bill. I tried to explain that we were still doing our best to earn their taxes and give them the services in return, but they, of course, are struggling through this pandemic and asked that I bring that up to council. So while I had the floor, I wanted to also mention that. Now, along those lines, I thought it was probably a good time for me to mention some of the things from a financial standpoint for our organization. So I'll go over those very briefly, and I appreciate everybody's patience with me. I do promise that I'm almost done with what I have to say, and I'll open it up to any questions. But looking at the revenues, I'm going to just say briefly about the revenues and expenditures on where we are in 2020. Looking at the revenues, we're actually on pace to be a little bit ahead of where we were this time last year, which is promising. The only thing I'll say is that EIT revenues are still reflecting pre-pandemic time period employment stuff. So we're going to have to watch the EIT stuff pretty closely. You know, people are recommending that you consider the unemployment rate as the type of percentage you might be looking at in terms of reductions for that,
Dave?
but we're going to have to watch it.
Dave?
Also, yes, sir.
ETI.
Yeah, what is that?
I'm sorry. The earned income tax,
All right.
which comes off of your pay. Of course,
Okay.
that will be affected for people who found themselves recently unemployed.
Okay.
So we're going to keep an eye on that, but right now we're still getting revenues from pre-pandemic months, timesheets, pay periods. So we haven't hit that in terms of what monies we would be receiving. So I would imagine come June, July, August, we'll start to see some reductions in the amount of money that we get on EIT. So we're gonna keep our eyes on that. I expect that number to be in the 60,000 range. We might lose, but that is all dependent upon what the unemployment rate does, and then, well, how long everybody's in this boat for. And those are things that no one's real sure about right now. The second reason I think that revenues are still on pace is because a lot of people like myself, for example, have their mortgages, have their property taxes escrowed. And my mortgage company, for example, thinks that we owe it by the end of April, so mine was paid already. And what we've seen is that a large percentage of mortgage company payments have still come in on time, which on time in normal years would have been before the end of April. So the thing with property tax revenue is, assuming that we don't change the rates, we might have to wait a little longer to get the revenues, but eventually they'll all be paid. And you know, as everyone knows, we've saved for occasions such as this, that we would have the flexibility in our budget to be able to handle these types of emergencies. But at the same time, we might see toward the end of the year, especially if some of this stuff doesn't lift, if people aren't able to pay their bills, I would assume that they won't be paying their tax bill either. So we may see a higher rate of non-payment than we would normally have. We'll keep our eye on it, but I'm pretty confident that eventually taxes need to be paid. So we know that would be temporary. Just a note about expenditures where we are right now. We've spent about $40,000 or so less than we had this time last year. I guess I would attribute that to fuel costs and you know, operation and maintenance costs, you know, electricity and lighting and things like that. Honestly, the mild winter seems to be what has helped us more than anything. But I did want to point out, as I know everybody is aware, that we have several vacancies right now. And I just wanted to point out that we've seen very little savings at this point from those 3 vacancies, as those employees had leave time and had been still being carried on payroll until recently. So we haven't seen a whole lot of savings from those things. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that we have no idea if there's going to be any emergency aid, whether it's state aid or federal aid for this for the declared disaster. But we've been tracking it. The county has asked us to track it, and as of today, we've submitted what it amounts to $133,780 in expenses attributable to this pandemic and our responses to it. That number is roughly increasing somewhere around $20,000 a week or so. We don't know how long we'll be doing this, but where those numbers will be, but that gives you a general idea of at least as of April 28th, how much money we might be searching in terms of relief for this if it becomes available. So those are some of my notes on our responses. I can't say enough how incredibly impressed I've been by your employees and your staff. We have been, I don't want to say seamless, but we've been very good at adapting to what's been thrown at us here. And really, I just appreciate the hard work, Gail's hard work. And as you can see today, she's at the office again. And I appreciate all her time and efforts to keep everything running. And, you know, everybody's been involved in some way. I appreciate the employees who have come in to keep the grass knocked down in the parks. And I appreciate all of the hard work. And I know I speak for the council that, you know, into the council directly. If you were to see what I see on a day-to-day basis, you'd be very pleased with the response and the dedication that they've all shown. So I thank them all directly. So otherwise, that's what I had for you tonight. And I'd open that up if there's any questions about that, anything I can answer, or Rick or Gail. We're all here and available to answer whatever question you might have.
Dave Lillard?
Yeah, couple of things. First of all, definitely thanks to all the employees that are doing what they're doing. We really appreciate it. And thanks, Chief, for your guys that are walking and driving around and keeping us safe. My question, I don't know if you can answer that. The tax revenue that we get from Ski Liberty for weddings and things like that. I know that we don't get a whole lot for the ski stuff, but the weddings and the other stuff that they have there, have you seen anything happening on that end?
We wouldn't normally get anything from them for weddings. That's not subject to the taxes, the tax structure in Pennsylvania. The only thing that is subject to it, and we haven't gotten to the heart of golfing season yet, but we might see some negative effect unless the golf courses are open back up. So we'll have to see.
Do we see anything from the hotel revenue on their end?
I guess just the pillow tax calculations, for which we receive very, very minor percentage of it. I'm not real sure what that percentage is. So
right,
I would have to defer to the county. Yep.
Bob, did you have a question?
I did not.
Okay. Bruce, you have the question?
I don't.
Seeing these things light up a little bit, so.
Well, I poked my screen a bit.
Okay. Okay, appears you don't have any, Dave.
Great.
Okay, next up is resolution number 4 for 2020, extending emergency proclamation. Do we have a motion?
Is that number 4, Rick?
Yes.
I'll make a
Also-
motion to accept that.
No, that's actually number 5, Bob.
5, next page. Okay.
I'll make a
Also
motion
moved.
to accept resolution number 4, 2020.
Rame, I'll second it.
Okay, is there any discussion?
I would wonder, is this a potential to look at more frequently than a month? Is there some of these things that might be kind of easy?
Dave,
Lost you,
can you
Bruce.
answer that?
I'm sorry.
Bruce, are you still there?
He broke up on the end of his question, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure I heard the whole thing.
I didn't either.
Okay, disregard. I vote.
Okay, Dave. Zach, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to chime in that the question was cut off on my end as well. I think maybe, and I don't want to speak for Bruce, but I think maybe the question he was asking was from a time standpoint. And I think if you look at the last, and again, maybe was on the wrong track, but the last bullet point I think is important in that it allows the declaration of emergency to remain in effect going forward. Essentially, once the state's emergency is ceased, then this one would go away. So you don't have to continue to take actions.
That's right.
Okay, all in favor of extending?
You wouldn't need a roll call, Rick.
What was that, Bob?
I think, aren't you taking roll calls? So
Yes.
okay.
Okay, Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes. Moving on to item 6, resolution number 5, 2020, extending the 2020 real estate tax. And that's where we're pushing the dates out for payment.
I have a question, Dave. Bob Verderame. Is this necessary in light of what the state and federal people have done?
I'm actually deferring to Zach on that one because I thought what we did last time we talked about it was enough, but this was what was recommended by our attorney to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I can jump in there. And actually, I have to commend Adams County because they got out in front of this and took essentially the action that the Commonwealth got around to, about 4 or 5 weeks later. But essentially all this resolution does is extend the discount period for 60 days, 2 months, and it essentially extends the face period for an additional 2 months as well. And the reason this is important is because the county's already taken this action. So what we're hearing from the tax collectors, I'm sure as you can imagine, they want consistency across the board in terms of the timeframes that the county has set forth with they're not collecting real estate tax for the county that has one time frame and for the municipality that has a totally different time frame. So for that reason, the county kind of took the lead, took this action, and now the municipalities across the county are taking parallel actions to make sure that there's consistency across the board in those time frames. And again, when Adams County took this step, it was kind of, they were kind of going out on, I don't want to say going out on a limb, but they didn't have much guidance from the state at that point. The state has subsequently just a week ago, Monday, passed Act 15, which specifically authorizes this action to be taken. So prior to the state passing Act 15, there really wasn't a whole lot of state guidance, but now there is specifically saying that it's okay for both the county or the municipality, any taxing district, to make an extension of this kind.
So Zach, what you're saying is that when we approved it during our emergency meeting, we were ahead of the game and we just have to reconfirm it.
Just sort of the administrative paperwork side of things.
Okay.
Like I said, it helps now that the state has specifically given you the authority to take that action that you took. Not that there was any issue with having taken that action prior to the state acting. It's just that now you have that absolute certainty that this is authorized.
Okay, Gail, roll call.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard, Mr. Lillard,
Got to unmute myself. Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
So that resolution passes, and maybe that helps a little bit, Dave, for what was coming in from the one citizen requesting help?
Well, I had shared that information. They still were hoping that there'd be not just a delay, but a reduction. And so I said I would share that information. I had only received it from one person, that question though.
So the problem is, Bob Verderine, if you do it for one, does not open the gate for anybody else to come in and ask the same.
Yes.
Well, and I don't mind playing the bad guy as your financial person here. You're still providing service, the services to people. It has a little different look right now, but we're still incurring costs and providing services. They still have police services. They still have emergency road services and things. So, I mean, we're still incurring the cost. It's not as if that the money isn't being spent wisely. So, and in light of how much our local tax bill is compared to what your total tax bill is, you're talking about 10% of your total tax bill from us. So we're the small fries on the table, so to speak. And
well, would
perhaps,
anybody want to consider I'm sorry, it's Bob Verderine again. Would you all want to consider, to help this particular person or others in the same straits, a reduction to be paid back later, as opposed to a gratis freebie, and or postpone, instead of having to pay a reduced amount, postpone it for another 30, 60 days to see if things change. My concern simply is whether this person, can afford to pay it at all or not. Well, that'd be something that might be, you all would want to consider. I just throw it out for consideration. I'm not making any motion at this point.
I mean, understand that at this point, based on the actions that you've taken as a group, they're going to have penalty-free the option to pay their taxes up until December 31st. I realize that perhaps not everyone, maybe. I mean, I hope everybody will be long back to work by then. But you've given, the balance of the year delaying, for people to be able to afford it.
Were they aware of that? Do you know?
They were, yes. Again, I'm trying to be fair on how I characterize it, but I've not been given this question really by anybody else. Everybody else has been extremely appreciative that we're willing to waive all the late fees and push it out to December 31st. So, I think they understand that we're still incurring costs and we're still providing those public safety initiatives and so forth. So,
okay, all right.
I've only heard it from one. So, and ultimately understand that, you're talking about I don't know how much your local tax bill is, but, $100 here and $100 there is what we're talking about. We're not talking about your $4,000 property tax bill. And perhaps that's what the issue is that the resident who did ask maybe just doesn't understand that we're a real small percentage of that total tax bill, and that they might be better served asking other agencies.
Thank you.
So, yes.
Okay, moving on to item 7, resolution number 6, 2020, PMRS pension plan update. Do we have a motion to approve?
Verderine, so move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, Gail, roll call, please.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard. Turn on your mic. Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Item 8, resolution number 7, 2020 PMRS pension plan update, non-uniform. Do we have a
So
motion?
move at the top. So move it. Verderame, so move it.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay.
Carl second.
Any discussion? Okay, Gail, roll call, please.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, resolution passes. Request to hire officer is item number 9. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
I move that we table this item until we can meet in person. In a motion.
Do we have a
Bruce, you
second?
tailed off in the middle. I couldn't hear the whole question. The whole motion, I mean.
I move that we table this item until we can meet in person.
With whom?
With,
As the council.
as a council.
Meet with the applicant?
No,
Is that what you're asking, to meet with the applicant?
until we as a council
Right?
can meet face to face.
Oh,
Is it
okay.
is it possible to meet with him on Zoom?
We're not looking to meet with him. The motion is to have the council in public meeting, not by video, but in person. And so Bruce's motion is to table until that event.
I'd
Bruce, do you have
second
a
the motion.
reason?
Is there a second?
There is, Bob Verderame.
The reason is that this is a very awkward method of discussing anything. The price on the wages is higher than I expected. The qualifications we cannot discuss. This, as you can tell, I'm frustrated with this method of conducting business, and that's one of the reasons. It's not just a cut and dried operation.
Before we vote, can we get the chief to weigh in?
Sure.
I have a point of order. Is a motion to table debatable?
Actually, I believe it's not. Zach?
It's a good question. Let me pull it up.
Robert's rules?
Yes.
I don't know. My book is at the office.
Well, but Robert's rules is not enforceable. That's just Robert's rules, really. To my knowledge anyway, you can discuss the motion as much as you like.
I just wanted to hear from Chief how this is going to hamstring his operations.
No, this is Bob Verderame. This fellow hasn't even graduated from the academy yet, so it's not going to hamstring him at this point. We have a meeting fairly soon.
And actually,
So would we pick this up again next meeting? If we table now?
that's what Bruce's motion is, and that's what's been seconded.
Okay.
And just as a point of order, I believe that we've raised this issue of Robert's rules, and Gail has indicated in the past that we do follow Robert's rules except for where the borough code differs. And the Borough Code has precedence over the Robert's Rules of Order. So I think the question that Bob raised is still valid.
Well, we're still talking about it, so really,
Yeah.
now it's a moot point. So,
And I think I saw a hand go up from Ron.
Oh,
No?
sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, the only thing
Yes,
that has to be considered now, Mr. President, on the motion to table, it has been seconded, whether that motion is debatable or not, as opposed to the original thing that's under consideration.
Right.
Thank you.
Jessica, you wanted to say something?
Yes, my only question would be, given that we're not clear as far as when our situation will change, can we, as a council, determine that there's a date that will be revisited by versus just our next in-person meeting? Because we are unsure whether our next in-person meeting will be the next council meeting or when that will need to take place. And so I would appreciate some additional clarity to that versus just a simple postponing until we're together face-to-face, seeing that as an unknown time period.
Well, Mr. President, I think there should be a vote first on whether the motion to table is passed or not.
Okay.
Is that not correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Gail, roll call. Make your list is getting long, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, I ran out of room. I need to start on a different page. Sorry. Mr. Carr,
Tabled.
Mrs. Kraft. It's a yes or no to tabling. That's the motion on the floor. Move to table this item until council can meet face to face, not in a telemeeting. And it's a yes or no to that.
But I'm going to say no. For reasons stated before, I'd like there to be some sort of date.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
The motion to table passes 6-1.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item 10, March 2020 Treasurer's Report. And this will be presented by Dave.
yes, there it is. If you have any questions, I'm sure Gail will answer them for you.
Well done.
Do we have any questions for Dave? All right, nobody's indicating a desire to raise a question. Therefore, I will ask for a motion.
Carter, I'm so moved. Why am I the only one moving tonight?
You got the best communications.
Oh,
Second.
Second.
I'm
Bruce
sorry, who
seconded, Gail.
seconded?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, roll call again, Gail.
Bruce Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 7-0. 2020 materials bid, request to advertise. You're up again, Dave.
Yeah, this one's really quick. This is what we do every April. We put out an advertisement requesting bids for prices of all these different types of materials for the construction season. have absolutely no idea if we're ever going to get to use any of them. But it didn't seem to be a bad idea to make sure we get the ad placed so that we can keep moving with it. So that when we do get back to work, we'll have all the materials that we need.
Now, one of the things that I was thinking with this as well is that right now gas prices are really, really, really cheap. And I know we always have an issue having somebody bid for the fuel and gasoline and stuff like that. If we could find out where Blue Ridge Summit gets, because I know they have a tank where they get their fuel, and where Fairfield, and I think Fairfield and Hamilton Band, I think Gail told me, has a dual agreement. Maybe if we could figure out a way, since we're having issues with that, if we could kind of get with those municipalities in a group and try to get a big bid so we can actually get a cheaper price. I don't know if that's possible.
Well, we could definitely pursue those things, but I think that we would be remiss if we didn't at least move forward with this ad as the backup plan.
Oh, no, I think we should. I'm just saying that it's something we should look at. And right now, I mean, I think we're paying much more to fill our tank than it costs to go to the gas station. And I think it might not be a bad idea to let the chief use a credit card and just stop at the gas station on the way to Fairfield instead of filling up at our tank and being charged $2+ a gallon. Might as well, at this point, if we can save some money just by filling up. I mean, what's the difference if he fills up at the gas station in Fairfield or at the borough? We're not obligated to use that gas, are we?
That's our gas. So
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is right now it's cheaper outside than from the contract we have.
yeah, no, I understand I don't disagree. I hadn't really thought about it.
Do we have storage tanks that can hold 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 gallons?
Yes, sir. We have a 1,000-gallon diesel tank and a 500-gallon unleaded gas tank.
And right now we don't want to fill those up if we can get it cheaper at the gas station.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
You know, right now the sellers are paying. Last I heard, sellers are paying buyers $40 per barrel to take the oil off their hands.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're under contract right now. Any gas we buy from this company, we have to pay $2+ a gallon.
Right.
Regular gasoline. I don't know how much it is.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and I would defer to Rick on that more than me, because most of our trucks and stuff have been parked, so we're not running a whole lot.
What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, I don't see any problem with it. I'd check. I guess, are we fixed on that price? That price doesn't move from our supplier? Yes, I mean, if it's cheaper, we can do that.
We normally ask for a fixed contract because for 15 years it's been a good deal to do it that way. So we'll have to read the fine print in those contracts to see whether or not it's flexible.
My experience is that it has not been flexible, and the unleaded price is $261.3.
Oh my gosh, I mean, they're paying $285 or $289 right there. It's almost 70
That's
cents
for
a gallon.
diesel, is it not?
No.
That's
Regular
70.
gas?
Yeah.
How much?
When we locked into this price, it was $3 a gallon.
Yeah. How often do you fill up, Chief?
It varies, but I mean, whatever we say is whatever we say. I don't know if it's worth asking them about it, because we're still locked in with Shipley, aren't we?
No, Tally Petroleum.
It might not hurt to ask them what they would do, and then compare it and just do what's cheaper, whatever it is.
Yeah, we can
So
do
it
that.
sounds like we could be saving at least 75 cents a gallon right now.
Yeah, well, we actually are going to have a staff meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, so we'll just talk about that at the staff level, and we'll make sure that we're saving as much money as we possibly can. I mean, our fuel budget is going to be pretty well way under right now, but I 100% agree that if we could be saving, 75 cents a gallon or more, that we ought to be doing it. So
Can
we'll
we
talk
give
about it.
chief, can we give the chief permission right now until we get some kind of decision from that company we're buying gas from to just allow, can he do that without our permission, or does he need our permission?
No, I think I've always considered myself to have your permission to buy anything as cheap as I can. So,
All right.
yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with it either. So.
Is there a place that sells diesel around here? I haven't looked yet to see if that Fairfield, if they sell diesel at Fairfield, do they sell diesel there?
I don't think they do anymore. They did. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think they still have a diesel.
So I think they have one tank.
Yeah, we might even want to think about filling up our trucks there as well. If what's, the sweeper and anything else that uses diesel, if it needs to be filled up, might as well just buy it from there as well.
Or buy it in Emmitsburg.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may be cheaper in Emmitsburg.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. So I think it's under 180 in Emmitsburg.
Okay. Well, I hear you. We hear you. We'll make sure we're doing what's best from a fuel standpoint.
All right, thanks, Dave.
All right.
Can we still do this bid or advertise this bid though?
Please.
I'll make a motion to advertise this bid.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Gail, please.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Get on mute, Mike.
Where are you, Mr. White?
Nope, he's
He's
having trouble
muted.
unmuting.
I
There
can't
you
get the
go.
space bar. It wasn't unmuting. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that was unanimous. Accident repeater program, item number 12. Dave, you're up again.
Yeah, very, very briefly, we just recently had our audit done. Gail, of course, was the person who worked with them on that. Our insurance company, as it relates to the workers' comp, as I've made you all aware in the recent past, we've had some head-scratching types of incidents. And, well, it's fair to say that the insurance company scratched their head too and highly recommended that we put in place an accident repeater program so that people who are repetitive in terms of their safe or unsafe behavior at work and so forth can be handled accordingly. So we like to keep our insurance company satisfied so that our rates stay as low as they can. So we being Gail and I are 100% supportive that this is a really good idea, and to put all of our employees on notice that if they continue to be an accident repeater, they will be getting in trouble. That was a technical term, getting in trouble.
Yeah. I see this program and I've read it through. My concern is that it seems like we're not really even taking anything after a third accident.
There you go.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Dave, is this a pre-printed program? Is this one we kind of thought up ourselves?
No,
No,
not
this-
at all.
Go ahead, Gail.
Sorry.
The insurance company gave us this verbatim.
Okay, then I would suggest that paragraph 3, the third time, can we modify this? The first time,
Excuse me, Mr. Carr. Mr. Matthews, should we not have a motion first and a second before we have discussion?
Yeah, okay.
I move.
You moved to
Second.
what?
So that Mr. Schubring, was that you seconding?
It certainly was.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, now we can have the discussion.
Back to my comment. Back to my comment is on the third time eligible. I think that line that says dismissal could be a remedy of your misbehavior. That ought to be a note that's put in the first time. That dismissal is a possibility if you continue doing this instead of waiting till the third time. I don't know about the propriety of that, whether it needs to, how that counseling might go. I know that if I was doing the counseling and there was some suspect, I just make sure that they knew that that was a terminational type of program.
Bob Verderame, I have some real concerns with this in its application. First of all, how many employees fit at the present time in the last 3 years with repeat accidents?
I'd have to guess, Bob. I'd say 2, perhaps 3.
Okay, so if it's 3 over the past 3 years, that hardly seems, well, depending on the nature of the claim, I suspect, to go to such draconian measures. And I say this for this reason, that the way it's drafted, the employee really has no say. First of all, who decides what is an unsafe practice? That can be a matter of contention or a matter of argument or debate. Is there a safety officer on our staff?
We have a safety committee. I don't know that there's a head of the safety committee.
Are they ones who are certified safety experts?
I can't say that any of us have ever been labeled that. No.
So then you have the position of where a staff member says to employee A, we believe you have been involved in unsafe work practices. He says, no, I'm not. Here's what I did. So the borough has a hand over him. If he disagrees, he's up the creek without a paddle. Secondly, there is no process for an appeal. If he refuses to go along with it, what are the ramifications for him? He's called in. They're told you're engaging in this particular practice. We consider it unsafe. He says no. What happens at that point after the first violation? It seems to me he would be able to have some say in the discussion process. I assume that your employees, since there's no union, are at-will employees. Is that right?
Correct.
Which means any employee can be fired for any reason or no reason unless it's violation of some federal or state or local law, right?
Correct.
So you have a remedy. If you think somebody is gouging the system, you have a remedy right there to dismiss that person. The other concern I have is the way this is worded about your concern. I don't mean you now. I'm talking about the whole concept of insurance increases. As I understand it, maybe Pennsylvania is different. You cannot fire an employee or take punitive action because the person files a workers' compensation case. The other concern is that if, in fact, this man or her or she, whoever it is engaging in what one considers unsafe practices and is making compensation claims, and they believe that unsafe condition is a fraud of some kind or an exaggeration of some kind, that's for the Workers' Compensation Commission and the Insurance Defense Council to address at a hearing. So my concern is that there is no remedy here for the employee. You've got a program in force that is all in favor of the borough with no real weight to be given to an employee who disagrees. And upon and the other thing is, you say 3 violations regardless of the time span. So if one could have 3 violations in 20 years, and he is still then suspected of, I mean, is available under this repeat programmer as an offender and could be terminated. There's just so many areas in here that cry out for relief for an employee who has no say, that I almost think it would be, if it ever got to court, would be, and I'll refer to Zach on this, would be really open to question. There's no appeal process. There's no way to contest this. So that's my say.
I can jump in if you'd like, Mr. Matthews.
Yes.
So I think I would say in response to your concerns about due process, that there's no due process for this issue, this type of issue currently in the handbook. And what you see here is actually an attempt at creating some kind of process. And to your point about that, it's non-union, so it's not a Loudermill setting. There's not that typical, more formal due process hearing. But I think you look at Section 2 procedure, subsections A, B, and C. I think there is a process there where the management staff member reviews the situation with the employee and discusses the accident, discusses why it's being treated as some sort of unsafe employment behavior. And although there's not a formal appeal process baked into that, I think that's that individual's due process to say to their supervisor, well, no, you haven't heard the whole story. Here's what happened, or here's why it's not unsafe. They get their opportunity to, kind of rebut the presumption. And then if it ends up in a position where the borough were to take disciplinary action against somebody, or somebody would get to the third step and they've been terminated, to your point about if this ends up in court, I think we would rather end up in court with somebody having gone through this process that's laid out in the handbook versus having nothing like this or nothing similar to this in place, and counsel or something were to happen and we ultimately discipline or terminate somebody, and there's nothing that we can point to for the court to say, well, here's the process we gave this individual, here's the rights that we afforded them, they had an opportunity to discuss it with their supervisor, and there's just nothing in the handbook and we fired them. I think could this perhaps be tweaked? Certainly. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with drafting this, but I think it at least outlines a process by which the borough can walk an employee through putting them on notice of what the problems are. And then from there, the employee is given their opportunity. And I guess I would sum it up. I don't see any real due process concerns.
Okay, are you not concerned that there is a unilateral, if you will, decision that this employee engaged in an unsafe work practice, whatever that may mean, that's subjective in the eyes of the borough spokesperson? Are you not concerned that there's not some way for the employee to have I'm just thinking out loud now, a disinterested person or something, rather than just take the borough's conclusion per se as it was an unsafe work practice, given the fact that there's nobody really an expert in safety on the staff?
Well, I think we already have that problem, though, don't we? We don't even have these procedures in our handbook currently. So whether it's the road crew or the manager or whatever, the sewer superintendent, whatever positions we're talking about, we've got hierarchies where we have supervisors of other employees who are tasked with daily making these types of judgment calls about the employment practices of people within the organization. And we don't even have this type of procedure in place. I think this at least outlines the process by which it happens. And if an employee feels aggrieved by a disciplinary action that the borough were to take after this process plays out, I think we're still in a better place having utilized this procedure than if there's nothing in place, happens that is considered to be a very serious, unsafe employment practice, and the borough feels like it has to take some action with this employee, and there's nothing in the handbook in place to have put the employee on notice. I think we're in worse shape in that hypothetical than in the hypothetical where we end up in court after we've run through this process.
Well, do you not think there should be some procedure for the employee to contest other than saying you're wrong?
Again, in a non-union setting, in a non-Loudermill setting, they don't really have that, generally speaking, anyway.
Okay.
If they feel they've been aggrieved, again, even though they're not union, if they feel they've been aggrieved by a disciplinary action from their supervisor, or from, if they were terminated by council or whatever it might be, the courts are obviously their remedy to try to effectuate that grievance, and that's where they can turn to. So I think that the question or the determinative issue for the borough is, do we have processes in place that gave this person a fair shake, that put them on notice of the expectations, put them on notice of the problem that was identified, to tell their side of the story. And once that has all played out, I think, again, in a non-union setting, that's basically the due process for that individual.
Final question. Are you concerned at all about the fact that I'll use this word, preamble, is to decrease insurance premiums as a backdoor way of getting rid of an employee for filing workers' compensation cases?
Can I interject at some point?
Yes, go ahead, Gail.
And the only thing I want to bring to your attention is our employee manual. There are actually 30 pages devoted to employee safety. And this has been improvements that Dave, myself, and the staff has made from 2011 forward. And there is actually a very lengthy safety program that has been dealt with Benecon and Keystone Municipal Insurance Trust, which is who we work with for our workers' compensation. So whether or not it has gone against a safety policy, we refer back to this specifically. And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was when we added the language just a few months ago that increased the safety expectations of our employees. They were added to that particular program because when it happened, there was nothing that stated that we had anything to hold against, if they have done something that was considered unsafe, it was missing in the document. So Dave made the choice to include it so that we did beef up our safety policy for our protection as the borough and the protection of our employees. So although I agree that this is just a small portion of it, the remainder of that program has been worked on for many years, and this is yet another step in helping to beef that up and to allow us the tools that we need to make it a better safety environment. And I think that Dave has worked on that as well.
One final question, I'll shut up because I've been hamming it up. Are you concerned at all, maybe Zach can answer this question, that given the notation that one of the objects is to decrease your premium for your workers' compensation insurance, and therefore you're instituting this accident repeating program, might it be considered a backdoor way of getting rid of an employee who has made several claims, not for him not to make any more workers' compensation claims in the future because it's tied into the premium decrease? In other words, you can't get rid of an employee because he makes workers' compensation claims. Is that a factor, Zach, that you think can be a problem?
Could it be a problem? Perhaps. I'm not seeing that language actually in the proposed language to go into the. I might be missing where that's.
It's the purpose is.
I'm reading section 1, purpose. It is the policy of the Borough of Carroll Valley here and after the borough that we provide to our employees a safe work environment. It is the belief of that accidents are preventable and that when both the workforce work together to minimize workplace exposures and practice safe behavior.
Yeah, there was somewhere in there. I don't want to take any more time, but somewhere in there it said to decrease insurance premiums.
Well,
okay,
I think
I've had my time.
I think you're looking at the interoffice memorandum that was just sent by staff to council. And I don't
Okay.
think there's any harm in council.
Yeah, number A, yes. Yeah. Okay.
And
All right,
staff
okay.
just kind of giving you some background about why this is a good thing. I don't think that imputes some sort of nefarious purpose. And back to the hypothetical employee who's terminated, who's thinks they have a claim because perhaps it's a retaliation for workplace.
Got you.
For a
Thank you all.
Dave Lillard?
Gail or Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have something in our policy to kind of deal with the fact if there's some employee grievance, or if they think there's some type of a grievance?
Yes, there is a grievance. There is a policy, Dave, that walks through. They have, when there is an accident, there's an actual form that's completed by the employee, and it over the supervisor and any witnesses to it, and then it goes to myself, it goes to Dave, and it goes to the employee. The employee actually has the right to put exactly what happened, and if there is any safety violation at that point, they do have the right to at least write it down, the same as you would if you had any other conduct, or an incident regarding conduct or anything. And Dave was instrumental in making that form, so I know that it's right.
All right.
Okay. May I have a moment now?
Yeah.
This has come before council because our insurance agent asked it to. My reaction when I read this was that it was redundant to what we already have in our personnel manual, because there are a list of things that if you do repeatedly are terminable offenses, and a lot of the unsafe practices that we're talking about are on those lists already. So my initial reaction to the document was that it was unnecessary, but I agreed to bring it to council because our insurance agent wants us to pass what I believe to be a redundant rule. That's my completely unfiltered take.
So you're pretty much saying we do all this anyway?
Well, I mean, we have a process already in terms of punishment and things like that. A list of things that, and like Gail said, there are 30 or more pages of safety things that we get very specific in, such as you must put up the rollover device on the mower before you use it. Hence, if you've done something where you had an accident and that wasn't up, now you violated a rule, and there's a whole process to it. I really believe this to be completely redundant. I'm okay with tabling it if anybody has any concerns whatsoever, but it only came to council because the insurance agent asked us to do it.
I wish you would talk first, Dave. I wouldn't talk so long.
Well, I think that when you look at procedure number 2, it gives you ABC, and then you go to the second accident, and it really takes you back to ABC and 2. You get to number 4, which is the third accident. It also takes you back to ABC in number 2. And nowhere in here does it, and it alludes to there could be additional ones.
Yeah, but number 5 says the borough reserves the right to skip any process or procedure contained in this policy upon the particular circumstance and severity. So basically, it literally says that the borough doesn't even need to follow this process. So if it was grievous enough after 1 and we said, hey, don't do that again, that was just completely dumb, and they do it again, number 5 says the borough has the right to say, you know what?
I want to recommend that we perhaps table this discussion because it's not a time-sensitive issue, which was part of our unwritten rules for this evening. So we were, like I said, we were just trying to placate the insurance adjusters by bringing this to you. But I think it's probably more important that we spend a little time, Gail and I, and perhaps with Zach as well, and make sure that the language is appropriate. That way there's no concerns. So please table
Amen.
this and move on.
I move you table it.
Thank you.
I'll second.
So do we have to vote on the first motion that was already on table before we make a second one? Or can we over motion?
Now, we've got to dispose of the first motion.
Unless the person who motioned retracts.
You want to amend the motion?
No, I said unless the person who made the initial motion just retracts the motion, right?
Yeah.
Who made it?
That would be Bruce.
Bruce.
So he'll have to withdraw the motion.
Who's going to say that? I
Okay.
retract.
Then the person, okay, if Bruce is withdrawing it, the person who made the second also has to agree to it.
Mr. Schubring?
I withdraw.
Okay. Now we can have the motion to table.
Okay, I move we table this.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Lillard?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Schubring?
Yes.
Mr. Verderame?
What do you think? Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Okay. The vote is unanimous to table. All right, moving on to item 13, municipal waste contract extension. Dave's up again.
I gotta tell you, I'm okay with Gail taking this one.
And this contract was sent to me from the county solid waste management requesting that we take action on this as soon as possible. I have not gotten a clear reason as to why we need to do it a year in advance. However, I have not had anybody terribly upset with Parks. What it does is allow us to remain at the exact same level of cost for an additional 1 year, which would take us from March 31st of 2021 through March 31st of 2022, which does allow the county a 7-month window here for to get their the bid stuff together. So that would be my guess, is that they are requesting to know now that they do not have to put the bid documents out and start that process, because I know that it takes them months to work on it. So the quicker they know that we're okay with extending the project, then the more time they have to get the bid documents ready for the next go around. So I don't have a compelling reason to have you say no, because everybody has been relatively happy with Parks. They've seemed to do a good job. I get a good response whenever I contact them if there is a problem, and I do get them to, donate to the borough for functions, that type of thing. So they've been a good neighbor.
I do believe our other regional partners here, the surrounding municipalities, have all already done this, right, Gail? Isn't that correct?
I didn't get a count, but yes, as far as I know, Fairfield and Hamilton Band were both on target to make those. I did not check with Liberty Township.
I believe Liberty and Freedom, I think I saw their stuff today, actually. So,
okay.
I echo what Gail's saying. I'm not real sure why we're in such a rush with this, but I honestly, having been through several trash companies, couldn't possibly say enough good things about our current service, especially in comparison to some of our previous companies that served us. So to me, it's a no-brainer to extend the contract a year.
Yeah, and to go along with that, the worst headache that you can cause for your office staff is to change somebody's trash collector for no real good reason. That was nightmarish, even when they hated the other company. Sorry.
It's funny. It's not personal or anything like that.
Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, Gail.
All right. Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Lillard,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verdereen,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Hey, it's unanimous. Moving on to item 14, property maintenance update. That's me. Bob and I are continuing to work on some documents that we've drafted. And the overall scope on this is going to be, where I'm thinking right now is that chapter 5 would be amended. And that's the one that talks about code enforcement. We're going to add in about the property maintenance type stuff in there. Maybe also with dangerous buildings. And then what we would do is refer back to other chapters where there is requirements that are already in those chapters. And so we would put all of the enforcement stuff in one place instead of having it spread out throughout the borough code. So that's where we are right now. Bob was just telling me this afternoon that he's made some edits to one of the documents that I provided him. So we're still working on it. I'm trying to get something together to pass along to Dave Hazlett so that we can get his feedback, and hopefully we'll have something before too much longer that we can share with the council. Any questions? Okay, number 15, new business. Is there any new business? Ron?
I just want to mention that today I signed a proclamation. It's titled Honor Those Who Protect Us. And I am proclaiming that Sunday, May the 3rd, be Hometown Heroes Appreciation Day. And those hometown heroes are people who are on the front lines in the battle with the COVID-19. And when we talk about that, we're talking about the first responders, medical personnel, the employees of grocery stores, pharmacies, and other life-sustaining businesses. And what I'm asking the residents of Carroll Valley to do, I put in the proclamation, it tells them a couple of things that they could use to express their appreciation for these people. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
How are we going to distribute that message? How is there something that we need to do on some of the social pages, the Facebook pages? What's our plan for sharing that?
Thank you for that question. It would be nice if we could put it on our Facebook, Carroll Valley. I have put it in my column in the Emmitsburg Journal. This is also in connection with something else. I don't know if anybody, why May the 3rd? The Pennsylvania State, Pennsylvania Mayors Association, the Pennsylvania Chiefs Association, the Pennsylvania Association of District Attorneys are running a campaign also to honor hometown heroes. And they're using the motto of bells across Pennsylvania, and they're asking the different places of worship to ring the bells at 7 o'clock. So what I have done, we don't have a church in Carroll Valley itself. The one we have that I am aware of, and there may be others, St. John's in Fairfield, you have St. Mary's in Hamilton Band. So that's the approach I used. When you read it, you'll see the things that I'm asking people to do, like, put your porch light on in the evening and so forth. But to be direct answer to your question, hopefully it'll be on our Facebook. And the other one is I did put it in the column and expressed, kind of summarize what the proclamation is.
If I get a copy of it, it'll be on Facebook.
Okay, thank you.
And
This is
while we're on that subject, we should also think about, we have one local business that does need to be supported, and that's Travernus. So kind of find a way that we can help them out, because Ski Liberty is completely shut down, but Travernus is still taking carry out as far as I know.
Food.
okay. This isn't exactly new business, but Dave, can you give us an update as to where we are on the new website?
Yes, they're in the process right now of populating taking the information that was on the old site and moving the stuff over. They're moving along at a pretty decent pace right now. So I'll be glad to share an email that updated me just a few days ago from them, so that everyone can see it.
Okay, that would be good.
But as far as I understand it, we're still in the same time frames that we were before. It was, I want to say mid-May was the date that we were shooting for a rollout. So.
Okay, well, hopefully we can make that date.
I hope so.
Okay.
Yes, Richard.
Any other business? John?
Yes, Richard.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to mention regarding the regular meeting.
You're breaking up terrible. You're breaking up terrible. We can't understand you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So regards the heavy duty truck, I actually didn't vote last time because I was still thinking about the information. What I'd ask is that anytime that we have a capital expenditure in the future, that we as a council could get documents 30 days in advance of anything pertaining to that purchase so that we could read them. I was still thinking about some of the details of the purchase of that vehicle when the vote came, and so I didn't vote. And that's on me, but I would really appreciate getting that kind of information ahead of time. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have anything? Okay. Is Mr. Nelson still with us, and would he like to ask any questions or make comments?
He's still there, but he hasn't raised his hand, and there's nothing in the Q&A.
And there are no emails.
Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
I second.
Gail, I guess we need to do roll call again.
All right, Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Schubring,
Yes.
Mr. Verderame,
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Mr. Lillard?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped right over you. I saw it turned off. I just skipped right over you. I apologize. I just assumed you'd say yes.
I want to thank the chief for helping us get this set up and for getting us through it. And I think that it went quite well for our first meeting this way. It was awkward, but it was successful. So thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. Stay safe.
Night.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Keep well.
Safe.